we'll have questions, time for questions at the end of the session as well. So as we get started today, we will be talking about what Google Jamboard is and how you can get started using Google Jamboard in your classrooms as well. I will share some tips for using Google Jamboard, and we will have time to start creating and planning to use Google Jamboard through this session. So Google Jamboard is an online collaborative whiteboard that automatically saves, just kind of like any other Google tool you may already be familiar with, such as Google Docs, Google Slides, and Google Sheets. Google Jamboard provides multiple different tools to draw, write, annotate, and more. And this space can be used as a whiteboard, but it also can do so much more than that, which we will dive in a little later. Recently, a new update has allowed users to upload their own backgrounds into Google Jamboard, which we will also get to in a little bit. And this allows for this tool to do so much more than just be a whiteboard. This may sound kind of similar like to a Google slide as you think of backgrounds and changing those as well. But if you may know a little bit about Google Jamboard, they're pretty different. Google Jamboard is much easier to draw on and move items around the frames. One of the downsides to Google Jamboard, which could be getting fixed in the future updates, is the version history. So if you're familiar with Google Docs and Google Slides and even Google Sheets, if you're working with another collaborator, you can see the version history and find out who made what changes when they're not on the document. However, right now with Google Jamboard, this is not yet available. So as you will see when we get into using Google Jamboard in a couple minutes, you will be able to see the icons of who is working and what they're doing while they're doing it. But once an individual clicks off that certain element, you can no longer see who made the changes to the document. So again, this is something that is rumored to be coming in the future updates, but right now it's not currently available to see who made those revisions in the past. Google Jamboard is accessed similarly to all the other Google tools as well. You can get to it through a web browser or downloading the app, which is good for our tablet students. If students are using a tablet, they will need the app. It just functions a lot easier with that. Up to 50 users can be on a Google Jamboard at once with a maximum of 20 frames. So frames are going to kind of be comparable to slides, and we'll take a look at those in a little bit. But this will allow you to duplicate or add blank frames or kind of like slides. So sometimes I choose to do the frames for different activities on each of the frames, or sometimes I split students up and tell one student to go to frame 1, another student to go to frame 2, and have them work individually as well. So lastly, this tool is completely free, which makes it really awesome for our classroom use. So today we are going to get started with using Jamboard, and I'm going to give each of you a time to explore with Google Jamboard. So I'm going to put the links here that they are on the slideshow. If you're on the slideshow, you can click into one of them. I'm also going to put the links directly to each of the Jamboards in the chat. So I split them up by grade level, sort of, just to make it easier so there's less people on a board. So go ahead and click whichever one you fit in. If you fit in multiple categories, whatever, click on any of them. Since it maxes out at 50 people, I just figured it'd be easier to have multiple different Jamboards. So this Jamboard has already been started and is just being shared with you through a link. A Google Jamboard can be started within Google Drive, just like any of our other Google Docs, or you can start by going to the waffle up at the top, the 9 dots up at the top, and clicking on Google Jamboard there. So Google Jamboard is very similar in the same way of Google Docs, as you can share it the same way. There's the blue button at the top, which you'll see when you open it as well, and you can click on those and share with the same settings of viewing and editors. So once you get into the Google Jamboard, I'm going to ask you to find a frame that you can work on. So while you are in this frame, you will see at the top of the screen, let me switch one open. But you'll see at the top of the workspace at the very, very top that there is a number that is going to tell you what frame you are on. And if you use the arrows, you can move to multiple frames. Frames are kind of just like slides. So if you can find a space that is empty, you may need to click a couple frames out. If you just keep clicking, it will keep adding ones. So the first thing we are going to start with is if you can find a frame, we're going to try and explore these tools as well. So try and find a frame that you can work on yourself. If you can't find one to work on yourself, that's fine. Work on it with someone else and try and see if you can figure out how to write your name what you teach, and where you teach. So using the tools in the Google Jamboard, see if you can find out a way to write your name, what you teach, and where you teach. So the links are in the chat again. I will put them in again in case you missed them as well. So one of the tools that you can use on the side, you'll see that there's a text box and a sticky note. Either of those will work for adding text so that you can write your name, where you teach, and what you teach. The next one to try and explore with is to see if you can draw a smiley face. Use Google Jamboard in the frame that you are working on to draw a smiley face. So right now we're just exploring with the tools of Google Jamboard just to see how they work. And the next part is to insert a picture of a sad face. So insert a picture of a sad face. The next part is to see if you can insert a circle. Make a circle. The next step is change the background. And then the next step you've probably already figured out is to add a new frame. So I'm going to switch over to the Google Jamboard. So that was just exploring some of the different tools that you will find on Google Jamboard. So the tools that students will use will mostly be over here on the left. So the top one is the pen tool. That's great for drawing. If you click on it, you can change the width of the pen as well as the color. Here is an eraser. If I wanted to go back and erase anything, I can do so as well. The mouse allows you to move things as well. If you're not on the mouse and you're trying to move something and you're on the pencil per se, it will start drawing all over the screen. The sticky note here allows you to type on it as well. Then there is the insert image picture. When you click on this, there's quite a bit of options. You can see that to find the sad face, I decided to use Google image search. If I had a picture in my Google Drive, I could also select from here. I can use the camera that I am working with on my computer to take a picture from there as well. I can insert by URL or upload something from my computer. So there's quite a bit of options here that you can use to upload a picture in. There's a whole bunch of different shapes here that you can access from as well. There is a text box that you can type in as well. So the two ways of typing are the sticky notes and the text box. And then this here is the laser pen as well, which you will see as I draw, it moves away. So those are the tools here on the left. Similar to a Google Docs, you have an undo button and a redo button, the zoom as well. Up here, you can set the background. I talked about before how you can add your own backgrounds. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. And then if I wanted to clear this whole thing, I could click on clear frame as well. Up here, this is where you navigate between the different frames. If I wanted to go to the next frame, I can see all of them here, and I can go to whatever frame I want to as well. And then up here in the 3 dots next to the share button, this is where you'll find some of the tools to rename, download as a PDF. So this is the only way to save these images are to download as a PDF or save frame as image if you want them outside of a Google Doc. And then I can delete it or make a copy. So we're going to come back to this make a copy in a little bit. So basically the tools that you're really going to focus on are going to be over here for students. So it's very, it's a limited amount of tools, but it makes it a little bit easier to control and for students to know how to use them as well. So some of the ways that I have used Google Jamboard in the past, I have done drag and drop activities with students where they have categories and they move things into the different categories as well. I've done some SEL check-ins to see how students are doing and seeing how they're doing with the objectives as well. I have also used Google Jamboard to have students write class expectations. I have allowed them to type their own expectations that they have for the other students in the class as well as our class as a whole. It's been great for sharing background knowledge as well. And then I do a book club with students in the after school program, and I use these to post discussion questions, and then the students add sticky notes and text boxes around it to answer the discussion question. So a lot of these activities I have all done here have been with students synchronously, but they can also be used a lot of different ways to do lessons asynchronously as well. So in this next section, I'm going to share some tips for using Google Jamboard. So some of these helpful tips will help you with getting started is the sharing settings. So you can share the same way you do with other Google files by selecting the blue share button. And again, you can choose just like any other doc, you can make users viewers or editors. So viewers, they can see everything that's going on, but they can't use any of those tools along the left-hand side to do anything. If students or other users are editors, they can use any of the tools on the page to do anything, just like a Google Doc or a Google Slides would be. When sharing a pre-made Google Jamboard with students, and we'll touch on that in a minute, it might be helpful to keep a template version. So if you have a lesson set up with objects or a background that's already set up, you want to have this template version so that it is kind of like a clean copy that you can use with students. So this will make it a lot easier in the future when you go to reuse the lesson. So you don't have to clear all the edits students make, or if they make drawings all over the place, you don't have to worry about changing it. You'll have a clean copy and then the copy that you work with students. You can also change the sharing settings during the middle of the lesson. So just like in a Google Doc, up at the top, there's that blue button where you can share to either share with a link, or you can add individuals also. But when you go and change those settings, if you are using the link setting, if you make students a viewer in one moment, seconds later, you can make them editors. So this can be really good if you want to grab students' attention. Students really enjoy Jamboard and they love to use all the tools, but they can get off task super easily. So what I have done is in the middle of the lesson, if I want them to do an activity, I make them editors. But the second I want them to pay attention to something I'm doing, I remove their editing access and make them viewers only so that they can see what I'm doing, but I know they're not going to be scribbling all over it or using the magic laser pen because they think that that is amazing. When using with the students the first time, I encourage giving students the time to play and explore. So this is a mistake I made back in the beginning of the year when I used this with my 6th graders, and I sure paid for it. My students were more interested in scribbling all over and using every single tool to see how they work than they were actually doing the lesson as well. So I'm going to demo that in 1 minute as well. So it is a lot easier if you can give them a blank Jamboard, just like I did with all of you. Give them a blank Jamboard to explore those tools. So then when you're ready to do a lesson or use it that way, if you're giving students editing access, that they'll have that time to play as well. And you won't have to worry about them trying to take control of that to just explore as well. So you can share Google Jamboard with students in a couple different ways. You may want to just share your screen and do the edits yourself, either on a Google Meet or in a projector, where you are the one doing the drawing, the typing, etc. Or you may choose to share your screen and give students the link like I did with you as well. So it can either be something you're just showing them or something that the students are actually interacting with as well. Also, I have also done it as I have made a template for students and put it into Google Classroom and given them their own copies so that I can have them do an activity such as a drag and drop in Google Classroom with their own Google Jamboard. For our Seesaw users, that's a little bit easier because they can do drag and drop activities for each of their students. But when you get into Google Classroom, when you only have options such as Google Slides, you can use Google Slides for a drag and drop or something, but it becomes a little bit harder. So if you do use Google Classroom, you can use a Jamboard the same way you use a Google Doc, and you can make a copy for every user as soon as you upload it to the assignments. So lastly, remember that Google Jamboard can be anonymous when students are not actively using that element because there is no revision history right now. Again, that's something we're hoping is coming in the future. It's a rumor, but we're still waiting on that. So if you are looking to see individual student work, you want them to have their own individual copy, whether you assign that in Google Classroom or Seesaw as well. You want them to have that individual copy if you're going to have them do their own work. If you're doing a whole group activity or even a small group activity, it might be more helpful to have students on a shared Google Jamboard like you were before. So if I switch back over here to the Google Jamboard, so the sharing settings are going to be up here at the top again. So right now you'll see that I have this Jamboard is organized so that anyone with this link in Schenectady City School District can edit. So this is the easiest way that I find sharing. I don't need to type everyone's name in, especially when I'm working with a class. It would take me too long to type in everyone's name right in the moment. So instead I can just change this. I can pick Schenectady and I can pick editor. If I wanted to turn off this share settings, all I need to do is switch this to a viewer. If any of you were on the middle school board, which is the one that I am on right now, when you go to this middle school board, you'll be able to view it and all of a sudden you will not be able to use these tools. So I have made you a viewer. If I wanted my students' attention, I don't want them messing around with these tools. Right now, I'm the only one who can make the edits. If a student tried to come on, they couldn't do that as well. So that's just one way to kind of control students' attention and editing as well. You can do the same thing on any Google Doc or any Google Slide as well. If you're sharing something, all you need to do is change the settings and you can either make them a viewer or you can make them an editor. Sometimes with a tablet, our students seem to have a problem with Google Jamboard. I know I was having some issues with Google Meet this morning being really laggy as well. So I'm not sure if it's with Google Jamboard or just kind of Google everything right now. Might just be kind of slowly loading. My Google Meet's been really slow this morning as well. With a tablet, it may be hard for students to both be in a Google Meet and in a Google Jamboard. Sometimes if I am doing a Google Jamboard activity, I will tell my students with a tablet to log off the Google Meet, give them 2 minutes or so to complete that activity, and then come back when they're done, and then they can rejoin the Meet there. Then they're not competing with trying to figure out the internet from there. So you can do either way with Seesaw. The question is about, do you have to create the same board for students, or can one be assigned for each student that I can control? So you can assign it so that right now, just like I did here, all of the students could come in here and interact as well on one board, or you could make a link for each of the students to use as well. So this is, so if I take this link here and let's see if I can. So if I view this link here, anytime you want to make a copy for a student, you can take this, you can change this URL link. I'm gonna, I'll try and get to that at the end too. Or if you're curious about how to make a copy for each of the students with Seesaw, send me an email. It will just, I don't want it to confuse people right now. So send me an email if you want to know about how to make a copy, because I can explain it better if we have a little bit more time. Or if I have time at the end, I'll come back to that as well. So there is a way you can do it without having the same board for students as well. So I will come back to that later on. So the next part here is, prior to the session, I pulled together a bunch of different templates that other educators have made and ones that I have made into a Google slide. So I will put this link here in the chat here. And as you open it, you will see that they are organized by subject area, and you will need to make a copy of them in order for you to use them for yourself. So if I open up this Google slideshow, You'll see here that they are all split up by, so here the first one is annotating and brainstorming. Here's some different templates for art. Definitely, these are not the only templates that you could use for art. If you see something in another area that doesn't necessarily say it's art, you can use them anyways. But these are templates that a lot of them I have created, and then some I have used from other teachers. And when you click on them, you'll see, so if I click on this one here that is a parking lot, I could use this template right away with my classrooms as well. You will need to make a copy. Right now, if they're ones that I made, you'll see that you'll only be able to view them. But to make a copy, if you go up here to these 6 dots on any of these, you can just click on make a copy. It will add it to your Google Drive, and then you can make any changes you want to it as well. Some of them I have been able to include examples with as well of how you might use these things, but you can definitely use these templates in any different ways. You'll see that there's some templates that are going to be easier to use for the younger students, and then there's some students that will be easier to use for the older students as well. So there are a ton of templates here that have been already done. If you have ideas of templates that you want me to create, send me an email and I will add them to this. If you have templates that you want to add to this as well, I would love to add them as well. So I'd love to make this as big as we can. You'll see here some check-ins. These are great for checking in how students are feeling and how they're doing as well. Sometimes I choose to do these check-ins anonymously, where students just put a check mark or they draw a smiley face or something someplace, and sometimes I ask them to do it with their names as well. Or some of them are even just to check on how they're doing with the lesson. So if I want to see if they're struggling, especially this independent support one, if I clicked on this one, it has a section of I'm working fine, I'm doing well right now, I don't need help, or I have a question, but I can wait, or I really need help right now. So having students writing their names into the different categories, they can do so as well super easily, and you can know who needs the help right now as well. Then there's a lot of different discussion prompts as well. I know, at least in my classes, I often struggle to have students making, sharing what they would like to talk about. But as when I put up a Jamboard, they seem to be really responsive to that, to share what they want. So I have done some where I've asked them to brainstorm different ideas. I've asked them to share if they agree or disagree with something. So these are just a bunch of different ideas and different ways that you might choose to use Google Jamboard. One of the ways that I have grabbed from another teacher here is this group work. So up here at the top, you'll see that some of them have different colors. One teacher on Twitter shared that she assigned students a color in a group. So if you are splitting students up into 4 groups, one student is red, one student's blue, etc. So if I was up here in this top right one, the student in green would work in the green box. The student in blue, the student would access the blue. So the access one, I'll put the link here in the chat. It's also linked to the presentation slides as well. And then hopefully they'll be linked onto the Schenectady, the SDSU Learn at Home page too, once we have the recordings. But if you ever lose these links, they should be in your Google Drive if you open them. But also just shoot me an email as well, and I can get them to you as well. So lots of different ideas here. And as we start to talk more about these ideas, I'm sure you all have different ways that you're planning on using Google Jamboard. So I want to take this time to give that opportunity to brainstorm some of the different ways that you would like to use Google Jamboard. So I'm going to put 2 links in the chat here. You'll see again that they're split up by subject area just to make it a little bit easier, so not everyone's trying to get into one Google Doc, because with the maximum at 50 people, we wouldn't all be able to get into one Google Doc. But if you click into those links there, you'll see it's another Jamboard that's split up by subject areas. And here you can brainstorm some of the different ways that you think that you could use Google Jamboard in these different subject areas. And you might be able to gather some ideas from other coworkers who are here in the same subject area. And then you will be able to share these. Remember, the sticky note or the text box are the best ways to write the different, to write on these templates. So again, the links are in the chat here. They're split up by subject area just to make it a little bit more organized as well. So go ahead and add some ideas on how you think you could use Google Jamboard in your classroom moving forward. So the link to the check-in templates, there's a lot of different check-in templates. So instead, I will put in the link to all the templates. They're all in a Google slideshow here. So it will just make it easier if you have this whole link here. And then if you go to slide 5 and slide 6, that is where you can find the different check-in ones. And then you can choose there from which ones you want whenever you're ready to use them. Yep. So again, right now we're brainstorming ideas of different ways that you might use Google Jamboard in your different subject areas. And again, these are going to be linked in that presentation slideshow that should be linked to the SCSD Learn at Home. So if you want to reference these later on, they'll be in the slideshow as well. And if you have an idea that could fit across multiple subject areas, feel free to write it in multiple areas. If you teach multiple subject areas, you can write wherever you feel that your idea will fit.
Hey, Megan, sorry, can you tell me where it again to go? Link to click on?
Yeah, so the links to for the brainstorming activities here, I'll throw them in the chat again. The brainstorming activities, they're organized by subject area. So if you
oh, okay, that's where I was.
Yeah. So they're organized by subject areas, and then you can click on one of them. And then as you go to the top of the page, you'll see that there's the arrows to go to the different frames.
Yeah.
And when you click on those arrows, you can find the different subject areas that you teach. So they're probably pretty blank right now because this is the first presentation, but I have another session after this as well, and I will combine the information from both of them so that we can share those out as well.
Thanks, Megan.
So if it says too many people are sharing the file, let's see. So neither of them look like they're maxed out, but I will X out of both of them. So hopefully some more people can get in as well. Because they both should be open to edit access. I will double check. Yep, so they're both open for edit access, so it should be letting you edit.
I'm good. I see people like putting sticky notes in there and writing. So I'm good. Perfect. Thanks. Do I log out of this or just go on to that?
Either way.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Megan. Okay, thanks.
So this is just a space that we can use for brainstorming right now. I will leave these links in that the presentation as well, so you can go back and access these later on. If you think of other ideas that you want to add to this Google Jamboard, the templates are probably going to be a lot of different ideas that you can use them. If you want to use those templates, definitely go ahead. If you want another template made, let me know. If you have templates you want me to add to that slideshow, I can definitely do that as well. So templates are pretty easy to make, and that's the next part that we are going to get into as well. So I am going to show you a way that you can make your own templates. So I personally love to use Canva. If anyone knows the library department, they will talk about how much I love Canva all day long. And they will say that I use Jamboard too much or use Canva too much, but that's okay. That's how they get all their social media posts done. But anyway, so I love to use Canva to make these backgrounds as well. So when I use Canva to make Jamboard backgrounds, I have just been using the Zoom virtual background template. So if you go to make a Canva account, it's free if you want to sign up with your Google email. And there is a way that you can sign up for their educator program for free as well. It just gives you a couple more different access points and different images. So if I choose this blank template here, so for a video, you cannot add a video to Jamboard. You can do images, but you cannot do a video. And that also brings up another point as to links. You can put a link in with a text box, but it will not be a hyperlink. So it will not be clickable. You would have to copy and paste the link that you want to post in a Jamboard onto a different document. So it's one of the also cons too, is that it's not a clickable link. If I put the link in a Google Slides, it would be clickable there. So can you see as the owner who posted what? Currently, no. So which is possible when you use a Google Slide or a Google Doc. Right now, that's not the case with Google Jamboard. It's something that is rumored to be coming in the next update because teachers are asking for that like crazy to Google, but it hasn't been done yet. So hopefully we'll be able to see who posted what. Right now, if I want to see if students individually post, I make a copy for them myself. But if you want to see what they're doing, you need to have a individual copy right now. Yeah, yep, you can pre-make. Just like Katie said, you can pre-make it with the Post-it notes. I sometimes do that as well. I didn't include any of those in the examples because I figured it would just be annoying if you're trying to make a copy of it and they're not names of students in your class, but you can definitely add those as well and pre-make them and edit them to however you want them. So this is Canva. Right now I have just a blank. So this is Canva, C-A-N-V-A. It is great for making different graphics. You can also use Google Slides, which I will show that in a minute as well. But right here, this one is Canva here. So right now I have my blank template, and I can use any of the tools over here to add to it as well. So I can choose to add pictures, which I already have. They have a ton of different pictures that they already have added. I can also upload my own pictures, and I can do elements, different elements here. So say that I wanted to make, let's say that I wanted to make a chart here. I want to have a circle. Here's my circle and say, oops, I got two circles.
I'm sorry, I don't see any circles or anything that you're drawing. Should I be going somewhere?
Nope,
We're
I'm on the wrong
on
tab.
the Canva page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on, there we go. So there's the blank template. I'm sharing with a Google tab and I didn't switch my tabs. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for telling me. So yeah, so here is the blank tablet again. So over here on the left-hand side, I can choose from templates that they already made. These templates are going to be more, since this is the Zoom virtual background template that I am using, these are going to be more about like different backgrounds that you might use in Google Meet. So these might not be very helpful unless you just wanted to use one of these backgrounds. But I like to just play around with the elements or the different text boxes to see what I want to add. So say I wanted to make a T-chart here. I'm going to take this line here and I can spin it. Spinning very slowly, but I could spin it to make my T-chart here, and we'll pretend that's straight there since it's not really cooperating. And you can add different pictures here. If you do make something that's moving, it will not be moving when you switch back into a Jamboard. So say that I was all done here. This is exactly what I want my Jamboard to be, the background. Any of these elements I have here, students will not be able to move. So if you're making a background, just like when you put it on Google Slides, students can't move any of these elements. So this is great if you want to type in a question for students, or if you want to make a graphic organizer for students, just like a lot of those templates are that I shared with you. None of those elements can be moved by students. So I have had, since if it's not in a background, students can delete things. I've had students delete the question, and then they say they don't know what they're doing because there's no question, but they're the ones that deleted it. So if it's as a background, they can't change it. It's stuck there until they're done. So when I am all done here with this template here, I can go to download, and you would just download it as a PNG file, and then it's going to download here to my computer. So if I switch back over here to the Jamboard side, you will see up here that I have the set background option. I can click on the plus and image side. This is how I can add my own template. And here I would look for whatever template I had from my computer, and then now it's stuck on the back. So here I have the template that I just created. None of these elements are movable, but I could add Post-it notes on top that are movable as well, and the students can interact with whatever template I created here. You can also create templates through Google Slides as well. If I switch back here to So this isn't obviously something I would want for a template, but say that I created this and I want this to be the background of my slideshow. Again, I can just go to File here. And if you choose Download, you can do a PNG or a JPEG of just the current slide. So this is going to take a picture and download it of just the current slide you're working on, and it will bring it down into your downloads. And then I can also bring this right back into into my Jamboard, and I can upload that as well into a new background. So I could say I wanted to switch this and make it this Jamboard. So with the ability to add your own backgrounds makes this a lot more different than just a whiteboard. This was not a feature that rolled out at the beginning of the school year. This has been a feature that has rolled out since the beginning, since the school year has started, but it gives you a lot more opportunities to be able to use this. It's great for graphic organizers as well, and you can use it in a synchronous lesson or an asynchronous lesson as well. Yeah, there are a ton of templates on Canva, and if you sign up with that educator program, all I remember, I think I was doing, if you Google like Canva educator program, you can get access to even more graphics and pictures for free. If you use the free version of Canva, there's a ton of free pictures, but if you activate the educator account, you get access to even more pictures and templates as well. Yeah, so there are some backgrounds that are built into Google. So these are the, there's some right here that are built in. They have just a regular black one, a regular blue one, but then there are also graph paper ones as well. So you could get a photo of graph paper if you wanted it different than this, but if you just go into Google Jamboard, there are these 7 pre-programmed graph papers here, and you can add them as well. Here is a lined paper one. If you were teaching handwriting, obviously you would want a bigger template than this, but if you were teaching handwriting, you could upload a piece of paper or an image of a line that is lined, and you can have students write on there as well. And if they're using a tablet, they would just use their finger to draw on it as well. It might be a little bit harder for students who are on a Chromebook or a computer because they would have to have the mouse control to be able to write the letters, but it gives another option as well. So if we switch back over here, there are a couple minutes left if you want to create your own backgrounds. I've showed you 2 ways to do so with Google Classroom, or with Google Slides, excuse me, and Canva as well. You can create your own templates. You can take a look at the templates that are already pre-created as well and make copies of those and start to brainstorm some of the ways that you could use Google Jamboard in your classroom moving forward. So before the end of the day, though, there is a reflection that will be for this session. I will put the link here in the chat as well. So this is just going to make sure that kind of tracks your credit as well to make sure that you can earn PD hours, and also gives us some great feedback as well. So that is everything I have to show, but if you have any questions, feel free to email me. You can ask questions now. If you think of something later, feel free to email me as well. Thank you all for coming on this Saturday morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I'd love to talk about Canva. Definitely email me. I talk about Canva too much. Talk to your librarians. So the next session is going to kind of be similar to this one. It's the intermediate session, so I'm not going to take the time to talk about how to use the features, but you're still going to learn about like how to make templates and brainstorming ideas. So it is going to be very similar to this session. So this session kind of went into more of the like a brief version of everything. That one will kind of be a little bit more time to actually create. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. So yes, you can change your Canva account to the free educator version. They actually ask that you have an account already, and then you just fill out information like where do you teach, like what do you teach, just so they can kind of prove that you are a teacher. Yes, it's super easy, and then they'll activate it within a couple days or something.
How do we get to that reflection, Megan?
Yep, let me see if I can make a hyperlink of it. So it's asking for proof documentation. I want to say that I took a picture of like my ID that we use to get into our schools, just so that they knew that I was a teacher as well. So I think it's just something that they can prove that you actually like are a teacher. So there is the link to the reflection there. So inserting a PDF, you could not insert a PDF. You could insert it as a background. So if you took a screenshot of it, you could make it the background, but you couldn't just lay it in there other than that.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome. Thank you.